work with whistleblowers, or you're part of the Whistleblowing International Network, I should say correctly. Anna, I'm sure that's a cause which is close to your heart, about the protection of those who do bring out, as Jeremy there said, uncomfortable truths. How does one do that? I know we've spoken about this in a previous conversation as well, but how does one do that in this case? And how does one do that, especially at a time when now Assange has been going after so strongly by this very powerful government?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where I would have said earlier that I disagreed with Patrick in the sense that, and I would agree with your last speaker, that the issue of who's a journalist and who's not, who's a whistleblower and who's not, does sometimes really confuse it and is not the issue. I mean, definitely Assange is a publisher and he published. He worked with journalists and journalists worked with him. You can kind of see this. We were talking earlier about the upward stream and the downward stream, and the media have relied on, worked with Assange, defining journalism. I think what we're talking about is who has the right to mediate between the issues that are being raised and the public knowing. So yes, there's lines around that, but I would say that whistleblowers tend to be the sources to journalists, but not always. They very much try to raise things internally and often suffer without ever having gone public. I think these issues around Assange raises really serious questions about who's allowed to mediate that, how much the government is allowed to take actions under the veil of secrecy. And what we're seeing is an attack more on those who are trying to get information out and less of a discussion and a focus, as I mentioned before, on the governments and the politicians who are very, very desperately trying to keep things secret. And in the national security field, I would absolutely agree. There are very sensitive issues and you have to walk very, very carefully. But we've gone through a period where American use of secrecy seems to have far out, sort of outstepped the boundaries of what would be considered necessary to keep the public safe. And that's what the battle we're seeing and having with whistleblowers and Julian Assange. And then we're doing it in the US and we're doing it under 1917, this Espionage Act, of which it was not intended. And we're seeing blurring of lines. It's very difficult in the US, but it will be difficult around the world because of that impact and the role the US plays in the world.
Indeed.